Boy, we got a full house here. Well, first of all, I want to say I feel we had a very productive meeting. And Grand Chief, thank you so much for coming. And what I said when I went in there, and I'm sincere about this, when I go out, and yesterday, I get pretty passionate. And I just want to say I sincerely apologize for my words, not only if it hurt all the chiefs in that room, but all First Nations. Because we know that if we work together, and I said during the campaign, nothing moves without First Nations consultation, respecting duty to consult, and make sure that we work together. And I get passionate because I want prosperity for their communities. I want prosperity for their children and their grandchildren. And I also mentioned when I was in the meeting about when we work together, ourselves, be it the province, First Nations communities, and the federal government, we're unstoppable. And there's one person we need to stop, and it's Donald Trump. And I also always say the foundation of, be it healthcare, be it economic development, transportation, policing, within First Nations communities, starts with the economy. And there's no one that wants more to make sure everyone prospers than I do. And again, Grand Chief, I want to repeat it again. I sincerely apologize if I've offended anyone. I thought we had a phenomenal meeting, and there's a lot of work to do. We're going to continue to meet. I've been invited up to a lot of First Nations communities because Minister Rickford always promises me he's going to bring me fishing, but he never does. But a lot of chiefs have said, come by. And I've also always said, anytime I go to First Nations communities, they treat me like gold. And that I'll be forever grateful. But we're going to work together. We're going to get through this. And we're going to have a great collaboration. And as I said before, I'll always respect treaty rights. And I'll always respect duty to consult. Because without First Nations, we can't get the critical minerals out of the ground. We can't have the energy that we need, that the whole world wants. So again, Megwitch, appreciate everything. Megwitch, thank you.
Do you accept the Premier's apology, or and how did the meeting go from your point of view?
Well, my name is Grand Council Chief Linda Debassige, and I understand the media is here to, potentially highlight some of the discussion points, but also to continue to breathe life into perhaps what people call racist comments that were expressed yesterday. As First Nations people, we continue to uphold our treaty agreement with the Crown. Our nations today have met with the Premier at his invitation, at our request to meet. And so I can confirm that before the meeting started that the Premier has indeed and did indeed apologize to our First Nations rights holders sitting at that table today. While there are many other rights holders in this province, our chiefs felt today that the apology was sincere. We are looking at today as a new day going forward. And there are many things that, while we had many of our First Nations leadership here, our rights holders, we do have to take the conversation back to the remainder of our chiefs who are unable to be here due to crises and emergencies in their communities. And we will, reserve our comments until after that, but we can confirm that the Premier has agreed to continue the dialogue with our rights holders to move forward in a good way. He has fulfilled his responsibility in his apology to our chiefs that were sitting here in the presence of the Premier today. And I know the Premier knows that there is more to do in this regard, and I believe his words.
And on Bill 5, is there any change in your view? I know you had expressed deep concern about the legislation and the special economic zones. Is there anything new to say about that?
Our nations, our First Nations within the Anishinabek Nation remain opposed to Bill 5. The opposition remains in that of which the speed of Bill 5 was entertained, and this has been communicated to the Premier and to various ministers. The First Nations have, spoken with the Premier, have proposed ideas and solutions, and the Premier has made certain commitments that we're not going to speak to today. We do have to respect our nations who weren't in the room today to have those further discussions and to keep the discussions with the Premier within that realm. We are not here to perpetuate a circus, to perpetuate misinformation. We remain steadfast in the rights of our nations. We remain steadfast in supporting those rights and how our First Nations are going to work with the Crown. And I can commit that I can share that the Premier has committed to continue in having that ongoing dialogue with our rights holders in a respectful way.
Premier, are you open to some of those discussions and those proposed ideas?
Well, I'm always open for engagement, and we're going to continue on with engagement because, as I've said, I said it during the election, I've said it over and over again, nothing can move without consultation with the First Nations communities, because I want the First Nations communities to prosper, and I want to make sure that their young people get the $10 million. Oh boy, I just blanked out. The $10 million education scholarship, and the $70 million of training. But more importantly, I want to make sure they're part of the $3 billion of equity that we're offering to First Nations. And I feel if they have equity partnership, then they have ownership. And when you have ownership of something, you're going to make sure you take care of it. You're going to make sure whatever that ownership is, you're going to prosper. And I look forward to continuing to communicate. I also look forward to going up to their communities and paying them a visit, talking to their communities, looking at their needs, no matter if it's long-term care or be it sewers or water sanitation, so on and so forth. I want to be there to help them. That's my goal. At the end of the day, that is my goal, to make sure First Nations communities prosper, because when they prosper, Ontario prospers, and when Ontario prospers, Canada prospers. And time is always of the essence when you're being attacked economically by President Trump. And I mentioned to the whole table, you play a critical role, as you have in hundreds of years, in fighting against someone that's trying to take over our livelihoods, trying to disrupt not only our country, but Ontario.
Premier, are you want to make changes to Bill 5?
Well, we're going to continue. We're going to continue to engage with First Nations communities. They've mentioned that after consultation with other First Nations communities, Grand Chief, then we'll sit down and we'll discuss it. How we can move forward respectfully, but time is of the essence too. And there's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, once in a generational opportunity to move forward and make sure that everyone prospers.
I'm going to clarify.
Yeah.
Thank you, Premier. To note before media misinterprets the Premier's comments, this meeting specifically today was not consultation of Bill 5 with our member nations.
I agree with that.
It was a meeting that our First Nations requested, our First Nations leadership requested. The Premier offered a date to our First Nations leadership, and they accepted. And today was an initial meeting. We have our discussions and deliberations that our First Nations need to do, respecting their roles as rights holders, and sharing about our conversation today with the Premier. So we're not in a position to speak to the details of those discussions until, we speak to our member First Nations who are unable to be here today. Thank you.
I agree with Brandon.
You can articulate exactly why you felt the need to apologize today. What about your comments?
Well, Colin, something, Colin, I sit back, I get passionate because I want to help people. That's what it is. And I speak from the heart, and sometimes my words don't come out properly, which I think you've all seen over a number of years. But I'm never too shy to go up, stand in front of the cameras, stand in front of, there's what, about 30 chiefs in the room? 30, 40, somewhere around there? And say, my words that came out yesterday, this is what I'm trying to do, is prosperity. And I sincerely apologize if that has offended anyone. I've never been too proud to sit back and apologize for something that I've said or have offended someone. But at the end of the day, I want the communities to prosper. That's what I want. When I heard a lot of the needs, and not just from the group of chiefs that were here, but many other chiefs that need things in their communities. The way you do it is by prospering, working all together, and working collaboratively together. That's how we all prosper.
I understand
But
that, Premier,
yeah,
you're saying you're speaking from the heart, but the Grand Chief just said that it was interpreted as racist comments. So in your heart,
and you know something, I'm not going into that bear trap, Colin, because we had a very respectful meeting in there. They know exactly how I feel. I know exactly how they feel, and we're going to work together that everyone prospers. Everyone prospers. And did you?
I'll clarify that. So I just want to add to that. Those meetings, in our view, were of that. And it are our chiefs today. While going to this meeting, we were, our chiefs, our rights holders, were fulfilling their duty as a treaty partner to have those respectful dialogue and communications with the Crown. To be honest, we weren't expecting apology because of how we feel we've been treated. And so we acknowledged, all of our chiefs have acknowledged and accepted in that room today the Premier's apology. We were in that room, right? So in terms of misinformation, I will speak to that because journalists listen to everybody always speaking here and misinterpret some of those comments that become polarizing and become very, I guess, disrespectful in a way that allows society to be polarized against each other. We were clear with the Premier, and the Premier knows this, that these are treaty partners. Our nations are treaty partners, as is the Premier, and he has agreed to continue on with that dialogue, upholding that responsibility that he carries, and has apologized for the words that were used. Apologizing to a bunch of cameras is not that meaningful, but again, I can't and he can't eloquently describe what that room was today, but we are reserving our comments into the content and detail of that conversation to a later time to allow us to respect our rights holders, our chiefs, to have that dialogue and communication of what transpired today.
Last question.
Mr. Ricker?
Could you talk about what your specific concerns are about Bill 5? So if we could hear those. What are your actual concerns about Bill 5?
Again, today's meeting was a meeting requested of our rights holders, the chiefs within the Anishinabek Nation. This meeting in particular wasn't all about Bill 5. It was about Ontario upholding their treaty responsibility. The Premier has corrected himself in the hat in hand comment and has committed to be working with us as a good treaty partner and has owned what he said. And I'm not going to belabor that, but also I think it would be disrespectful to our First Nations communities to suggest their only concern is Bill 5 at this time. So again, these dialogues, these conversations that are happening directly with our rights holders need to be kept safe. They need to be kept from being misinterpreted by journalists and misinterpretation by those who may read them. And, our First Nations within the Anishinabek Nation will always support the treaty rights and responsibilities that we share. These were contractual agreements signed by our ancestors and the ancestors of Ontario to uphold and to continue a way forward. So our chiefs today were very grateful that the Premier agreed to this first meeting today, and we too are looking forward to ongoing dialogue with the Premier. He is a man of his word. He tells us, so we know that those dialogues will continue.
Premier,
All right,
Premier,
thank you,
can I ask
everyone.
you about,
That's it.
Thank you.
Premier, can we ask you
Yeah.
about Prime Minister Carney's
Thank you so much.
counter tariffs?
Yeah.
Carney's talking
Yeah,
about
so
those counter
I did have an opportunity to talk to Prime Minister yesterday. He did give me an update. I'm very positive on what he's transacted with the president. It will be another 27 days now. I think we're down to 27 days. And I like the fact that in the steel sector he's putting that quota on. And then I also like the factor that, you know, if the president doesn't come to the table, I'll give him my full support on full-out tariffs of 50% on steel. But let's see what happens. And I also, in full support, if the president comes and says we're putting 10% across the board, well, we need to put 10% across the board and make sure that we protect our manufacturers here. That's the most important thing. But I do have the confidence in the Prime Minister and his team to move forward with these negotiations, and I believe he did a very, very good job for the short time he had with the Prime Minister. But it also gave him extra time. I'm sorry, with the President, but it's given him extra time to talk to all the other leaders around the world that want to work with us, that want to trade with us, and I'm just grateful for, honestly, for our relationship. He's going to be speaking tomorrow with all the premiers at the FMM meeting and updating them as well. And then we'll be following up in a COF meeting on July the 20th.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Just explain what happens now, because the public will be watching this. They've heard about this meeting. They want to know what happens next. Like, is there a path?
Well, the president's going to.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about the AFM meeting.
Okay, but we've done with that one. So now we're talking about Trump. Yeah, well, it was very productive. So I will answer your question. Sorry, it was very productive, very collegial, and it was very good. It was very heartfelt. So let's go back to Trump now. Yeah, with President Trump, I've never seen a country more united. Premiers all united. I'm going to be flying out to see Premier Smith, and we're going to have a great conversation about building pipelines right across our great country. And I know one thing, we're all on side going east, we're going north. Well, that's up to Premier Eby to decide if they're going west or not. But we have to really diversify our trade as well.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you. That was the last
Okay.
one.
I was just wondering what happens now with this meeting that you just had with the chiefs. Like,
Well, we continue to consult. We continue to engage. It's actually engage, because that was engagement, and I'm grateful that they came by, because when you're in a room with the chiefs and everyone, you get to really pour your heart out, and everyone poured their heart out in there. And I thought it was great communication with each other, and we're going to continue to do that. And I just want to thank Minister Rickford. He has been an absolute champion with First Nations communities right from day one 7 years ago. I appreciate his engagement. As we're all sitting here, I've called Greg, and he's 8 hours north, then he's over here, over there, always working with the communities out there. So I appreciate all your hard work, Minister, and we're going to continue to move forward.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You guys still. And we're working together, Jamie. We're going to work together. We've all sat around the table. We're going to work together. We're going to have engagement. They want opportunities. They want prosperity. We're going to work together. And that's what I can say about that. We're working on that side. We're working with Trump. But the last thing I got to say, this is just personal. Guys, on this cell phone, I can't keep up. I can't keep up. It's like drinking from a fire hose. I appreciate the calls, but it's close to 1,000 a day. It's hundreds and hundreds, and then people get ticked off and say you aren't responding. I can't keep up with my cell phone. So
Change your number, maybe?
Well, I'm going to give him yours, Debassige. Okay, thank you. Thank you.